Hoover's Rotten Apple, Chapter 40. It was a picturesque summer morning. Those who paid no mind to the ongoing auction were picnicking off to the side, with their woven baskets, checkered blankets, flying kites, and the occasional harmonica player. The food being enjoyed consisted of watermelons and wheat sandwiches and a rainbow of tossed salads. And all of Iowa's wildlife, regardless of difference, was attracted to the banquet's aroma. Squirrels, deer, robins, butterflies, and stray cats were all spotted from where Dale and Elmer sat. A field of foldable wooden chairs was displayed on the lawn encompassing the auctioning stage. At least, the chairs covered all portions of the lawn that weren't preoccupied by picnickers. Dale and Elmer arrived at the barn village early enough and barged past all the lingering farmers quick enough to snag two front row seats where they'd be most visible to the auctioneer. Itching up Elmer's arm was a leaf-colored caterpillar. Elmer quit poking at the insect as soon as two handlers marched on stage with a copper scuba diver's helmet. "Now, this ain't no ordinary diver's bonnet," the auctioneer spoke into his microphone. "If you look closely enough, you can see the lipstick left behind from when this here helmet's previous owner was smooched by a mermaid. That man spent the rest of his life loving nobody but that sound because of how beautiful she looked, despite never meeting her again. Let's start the bidding at 1 penny, like always." Dale leaned close enough to Elmer and said, "What if the auctioneer gives our prison pajamas a stupid little story like that? That'll be neat, won't it?" Elmer was electrified with excitement. "Ooh, that would be something. What if he says Jesse James used to wear them PJs? Or what if they were used in some famous flicker show about life in prison, one starring Chaplin, or even better, Keaton?" "And sold!" The auctioneer determined the helmet's price to be a perfect penny and nothing more. Next came a portmanteau stacked with homemade quilts. "At this rate, I bet they'll be selling our pajamas in an hour max, maybe even 30 minutes if the bidding don't heat up, which I'm sure it won't." "Sold to the man in the fedora." The next auction item was a case of fabric-bound novels, each with the title and author's initials embedded in golden lettering onto the spine, but no cover illustration or blurbs were to be found. "And sold for yet another penny," the auctioneer cheered. The audience echoed his boisterousness. Usually a murmur arose from those seated behind Dale and Elmer when an object of importance appeared on stage. "Does that there belong to old man Willis? I do believe his wife painted that portrait just days before she died." "Oh, he'd probably die from a broken heart if that got sold off." "I say it's our time to donate a penny, don't you?" "Agreed." If the item contained enough significance, somebody'd release a cheerful whoop or clap, letting everyone surrounding them know they were set on acquiring the item. When the time arrived for Dale and Elmer's armoire, and the prison pajamas buried inside it, to be placed on trial, only crickets chirped. The unnatural silence made it all the easier for the distant excuse me, please move," to be heard. Elmer vaguely recognized the speaker's voice, though he paid no attention as the voice drew nearer and nearer. A woman soon lowered herself into the seat directly beside Elmer's, and she said, "Remember me, boys?" Elmer turned towards her and found he was nose to nose with an angelic lady dressed in a belted lemon-yellow dress and a hat imported from Paris. "Well, I sure do remember the man you were with. Say, what came out of him? The selfish bastard must have been laughed out of the state for choking like that." "My Harrison? Selfish? How could you possibly say such a thing?" "Oh, please. You know how much these folks need some extra cash. Your Harrison could be helping them out with donations and all, but instead he's robbing them, kicking them when they're down." "You'd understand why we don't just give our money away if you had any," Miriam said. "But let's digress. My Harrison didn't get left out of the state for anything. He simply decided to stay home today after receiving some rather vulgar threats from some mean old farmers. I'm genuinely surprised you two weren't the ones to get clowned on for scrambling on the dirty ground in the nude." "That's because we made a bigger clown out of Harrison." Dale intruded only momentarily before returning his attention to the auctioning stage. Miriam snarled, "I know." "Well, do you want us to say sorry to your Harrison? Maybe come visit your house with some cake and flowers and beg for his forgiveness?" Elmer suggested. "Yeah," Dale monotoned. He was more tuned into the auctioneer's stories regarding the armoire and its contents. Each item inside the closet was gifted a backstory, with the prison stripes certainly being the most imaginative. Miriam ignored Dale and chuckled at Elmer. "Don't make me laugh too hard. I'm not here to make you apologize." Then what did you come here for? Elmer asked.
I came here for every single thing you two came here for. My Harrison has a list of enemies he wants me to outbid, and today he wants me to focus completely on you two. He sent me here with orders to take everything you want, just like you took his dignity by poisoning his pipe yesterday.
Why, I oughta, Elmer began.
Guys, stop bickering. The auctions began.
Dale interjected, raising a hand, raising the armor's price, and briefly placing it in his possession.
Oh, so this is what you boys came here for. Then it looks like I arrived just in the nick of time.
Miriam raised her hand, putting the armor at 5 cents and making it hers. Come on, Miriam, save your money and revenge for another time. We need that wardrobe. It could help so many more people than you can imagine, Elmer begged.
All right, I'll put my revenge away this one time,
Miriam said. She allowed Dale to place another bid before abandoning the charade.
Oh, but just look at that fabric,
She swooned.
It could make for a divine dress, and you think you could take it from me?
She laughed once more and raised her hand for the auctioneer. Well, go find another closet with some stupid fancy fabrics. This one's ours, Elmer said, raising his hand.
Sorry, kid. What if there's no other wardrobe out there with quite this fine a material? Plus, you're fun to compete against. You seem to really want that armoire, which will make my victory so much more thrilling. God, I love the thrill of competition.
One of her hands raised itself along with the price. The other rested on Elmer's knee.
Don't you love the thrill of it all?
She asked, removing her eyes from the wardrobe and fixing them on Elmer for the first time all day. Everybody else was sitting at an auctioneer that moment. Meanwhile, Elmer was drowning in the ocean of Miriam's eyes. I do love the thrill, Elmer droned, only aware of her eyes and her hand massaging his knee. As that hand rose to bid, reality flooded back. Miriam tried replacing it, this time aiming for his thigh, but he swatted it away. No, I ain't falling for any of your witch's tricks, he barked while bidding. I got a friend to save, and that's what I'm going to do.
Oh, isn't that a shame?
Miriam leaned closer to Elmer. He felt her peachy breasts pressing against his shoulder. She whispered,
I'd rather have you save me.
All of Elmer's veins briefly filled with boiling water, and he fell back into the trance. He wasn't entirely sure what she implied by save me, but desired to discover its meaning.
Elmer, quit acting like a puppy and keep your head in the game,
Dale commanded, breaking Elmer from his dreamlike state. Right. Elmer bid and looked to Miriam. Why are you doing this to me? Don't you already got Harrison to make whoopee with?
I'm a lady who needs much and can give much,
Miriam said.
You're a man who needs much and can give much too. I'll provide you everything you need, and you'll provide me everything I need, like pieces of a puzzle. Harrison is a puzzle piece too. He and I fit together fine, but we don't make the pretty picture advertised on the box. So, why don't you and I just get this silly auction over with so we can click together?
Bullets of sweat exploded from Elmer's brow. He hadn't faced a more difficult decision regarding women since teenagerhood.
Elmer, what's gotten into you? Focus, please,
Dale pleaded. Oh, yeah, Elmer muttered. It's now or never. Get the wardrobe or get the gal. Can't have both. Decide now before some sort of divine intervention decides for you and makes a wrong move. Do it. Elmer looked at the wardrobe. He didn't see the pajamas, yet he noticed every single splinter, every rustic nail, and every streak of exposed wood from where the paint had peeled. Next, he looked to Miriam. She was perfection, while the wardrobe, just a wardrobe. Elmer sighed and put his lips close to Dale's ear. We can't afford to buy. The bid's gone too high, he whispered.
What? That can't be. The bid just started.
Well, I guess we didn't bring enough money. Sorry, Dale. Elmer placed a hand on Dale's shoulder. Dale provided no corresponding action. One stationary, silent second passed, followed by another. Each passing second was another knife stabbed into Elmer's chest. Every second he became sicker and sicker.
Going once?
The auctioneer restarted.
Going twice?
The auctioneer fluttered his hands in the air. And Elmer's hand rose for another bid. But before any notable height was made, the auctioneer bellowed, Sold to the lady in the yellow dress. Miriam stood up and cheered for herself. The rest of Elmer's world fell deadly silent. Dale buried his face into his hands, and Elmer sat, thinking of what he'd done. What have I done? Nothing. He did nothing. Maybe there were some other PJs laying around, Elmer spoke, or even some black and white striped clothes. That'll fool them guys if we make sure to break in at night time. I guess. Dale's voice was shallow.
But now it's going to take longer to get Freddy. And if Miriam outbid us this time, what's going to stop her from outbidding us next time? And all that money's going right back in her wallet, so it ain't like she'll run out of money anytime soon.
You're right, Elmer said with both fists stuffed inside his pockets. You're completely right, but at least we can try. After sending Dale off in search of another article of striped fabric, Elmer reunited with Miriam beside the pea field where her cabriolet was parked. She was spectating two handymen as they loaded the armoire into her cabriolet's back end.
Be careful not to break it. It's already broken up as is,
She snapped. When she saw Elmer approaching, she studied him with the exact facial expression used against the handyman. Elmer stopped before her and said, Miriam, we're gonna... He didn't finish the sentence, just as criminals can't summon the fortitude to confess to their ruthless crimes despite already arriving at prison. Miriam tilted her head.
Do you have anything else you'd like to buy?
No.
Well then, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Marion opened her cabriolet's passenger side door and tried climbing in. Elmer snatched her wrist before her door closed. What do you mean you don't know what I'm talking about? We got ourselves a deal.
A deal, huh? And what is this deal you speak of?
Elmer skimmed the surrounding area to ensure no one stood within hearing distance. I gave you what you want, now you give me what I want, he whispered, like pieces of a puzzle, remember?
Oh, yes.
She giggled.
Well, I guess you assumed I was talking about my body. So silly. What I wanted was the armoire, and what you wanted was to see me with the armoire, because a bum like you can never see me in the nude otherwise. Well, you did give me the armoire, and I did give you the sight of me with the armoire, so now we both fulfilled our sides of the agreement. Good day.
She flashed Elmer a plastic smile and uncuffed herself from his grasp. The cab drove on, leaving Elmer in the dust.
What was that all about?
How long had Dale been standing behind Elmer? Based on Dale's clueless expression, less than 30 seconds. I was just asking for our PJs back. Elmer lied. She said no.
You think we should still try to find some other strap clothes somewhere?
Dale asked. Elmer watched Miriam's cab kicking up dust from down the road. He shook his head. No, I'm fed up with playing Mr. Goody Two-Shoes and getting nothing of it. Her and her Harrison are nothing but filthy rats who play as filthy as they live. So it's time to stoop down to their level. Get in the car, Dale. We got some PJs to get back. Chapter 41. It took him an hour of wandering about in search for a road, and a day to hitch back to Millville.
How'd it go?
Kidd asked as Palmer stormed into the cluttered sheriff's office located in the back portion of the Millville General Store. Shut up and get out, Palmer barked, falling into his leather desk chair. He removed his hat and rubbed the gravelly patch of scab glued to his forehead. Coagulated blood flakes, sand, and salt left over from the sweat all snowed onto his desktop. Palmer stared at the multicolored film of tissue shed from his forehead. He then toppled a pile of papers standing at his desk's corner. The type sheets rocketed to the office's low ceiling and swayed to the floorboards. From the desk's drawer, Palmer produced a tin of tobacco chew. After tucking a pinch of chew between his gum and cheek, he threw that, too, to the ground. It impacted the floor with the explosiveness of a comet, breaking open the tin's lid and dotting the surrounding wallpaper with bits of tar. Seeing the broken tobacco tin satisfied Palmer's craving for violence, he reposed in his desk, licking his droughted lips and muttering to himself whatever idle thoughts passed through his head. Gonna need a shower once I get home. Gonna need a doctor, too. And a preacher. Gonna need a preacher to thank God I didn't die back there. Kidd poked his head into the office. What part of leaving me the hell alone don't you understand, boy? Palmer barked. Kidd's entire body narrowed.
Those folks at the prison are here. They want to talk to you.
Palmer set his elbows on the desk and cupped his hands over his eyes. To himself he said, If only I had more papers to throw. More tobacco to chew.
What was that?
I said let them in. 3 men entered the room immediately. They'd been crowded outside his office door, eavesdropping for the slightest indication of an invitation. All 3 men resembled reptiles with their scaly, hairless skin, jaundiced eyes, and sharpened, scurvy teeth. Hello, Palmer. I'm Norman Floyd, and we came here from the Mug. said the gargantuan leader, whose forehead was in worse condition than Palmer's. May I take a seat? Palmer shook his head. Sure, take any seat you like. Norman sat across from Palmer. The others remained standing, each beside the office's entry. Norman began. As you may know, the mug has been tracking down 2 deadly murderers for the past few days. He paused, waiting for Palmer to acknowledge his statement. Palmer simply stared at Norman's sewn forehead without so much as fidgeting. Norman continued, and one of these murderers' confirmed victims happens to be your sister, Sissy. A longer pause followed. Neither Palmer nor Norman blinked as they studied one another. Norman cleared his throat. We came here to check on your progress in tracking down the 2 murderers. Do you have any information you'd like to share with us?
I ain't the first son bitch you asked this question to, am I?
Norman flinched at Palmer's question. He turned towards his partners guarding the doorway. They appeared equally distraught with Palmer's forwardness. When he returned to facing Palmer, Norman wore a slacked smile. No, you're not. He shook his head. My men and I have been interviewing folks all.
And what do you do with those murdering pigs once you catch them, huh?
Norman once more peeked at the door guards. One guard shrugged. I suppose we'll send them back to the prison. Yeah, we'll send them to the mug. That's where they belong.
The mug,
Palmer hummed.
That'll be good for them. They'd like that.
Sir, it's high time you answer our question, Norman said, trying to conceal his irritation. Do you have any information regarding the location of Elm? By the time Norman finished Elmer's name, Palmer had already stood up, pistol in hand. The 2 door guards fell as quick as Palmer stood, a bullet in each of their skulls. Next, Palmer pointed the smoking gun so close to Norman's face, he had to go cross-eyed to see the barrel.
Yeah, I've got some information, but you're gonna do the sharing today.
What do you want to know? Norman's voice cracked.
Everything you know about those 2 murderers. Tell me where I can find them, and you'll be able to live another day. You lie?
Palmer pointed the gun over to a corpse and returned it to Norman's forehead.
You'll end up in hell like them.
I promise I'll tell the truth. Norman whined, his shirt's collar drenched in tears. Please, sir, I've got a family.
Well, if you want to see your family again, stop sobbing and start talking.
Okay. The mug's got a roadside chain gang 30, maybe 40 miles away from here. It's straight off Moody Road. You can't miss it. Dale and Elmer will visit that chain gang sometime soon. We've already set up a bunch of traps, but if you keep a good eye out on that place, you might be able to snag them before the guards do, okay?
Well, ain't that something?
Palmer chuckled.
Just hang around the prison work farm until they pop by.
Yes, sir. That's all you need to do. Norman's breath was thin.
Well, thank you, sir.
This time, Palmer's chuckles weren't nearly as repressed. He soon started laughing. He laughed and laughed and laughed, not once breaking eye contact with Norman. It was an abnormal laugh, equally forced and natural. An incipient smile spread across Norman's face, and a few chuckles fell from his mouth. By the minute's end, Norman had laughed alongside Palmer, and Palmer had put a bullet in Norman's head.